Well, a cube will come up by default. We're going to talk a little bit about the materials. We talked a little bit about that last, well, I didn't talk about it, but the video talked about it, how to change the color, so forth. If I have the cube selected here, then I can click this little ball looking thing versus this one. Eyes aren't good. Let's see what that is. If you click that, that'll take you to your materials. You may or may not have something here. It might come up empty like this. And you could click the new if it doesn't have one there. And then there's different options down here. Diffuse, if I'm saying that right, specular, hardness, shading. If I click on diffuse and I choose a color, it changes the color of my object. One of these is like when the light shines on it. Now the preview here is such that you can choose one of these basic shapes. If we got a cube, you probably want to choose a cube. And that's what it looked like. Now if I come to specular and change something, then you may not see it change. I'm trying to remember which is which. Specular versus diffuse. One of them is about like when light shines on it and so forth. Remember that from physics? Which one's which? Mm-hmm. From physics? Do you remember from physics which one's which? Let's see. Maybe I'll just type in Blender. Diffuse. I may not be able to find it real quick. They used to have a page where they'd show all the different settings so you could understand the difference between them. This might be it. Okay, that's talking about the specular reflection, where you get your lamp coming down and bouncing off. It's a reflected light angle. As you look at some of the different options here, you can see what settings will give you. See how this bottom one here has more of the kind of white, like a light bouncing off of it? Where this one is more pinpointed. Well, when you play with those, that's how you can get different looks. If I delete this, and I add on a sphere, so do Shift A, Mesh UV Sphere. I want my materials again if it's not selected, and I'll choose New, and choose the color here. You see the way that light shines there versus changing some of these other options. Huh, that's interesting. Mini art, Fresnel right there. See how that's almost like cartoon-like, doesn't it? Over here, remember you could set your rendered. See what that looks like. Mini art looks like that. Tune looks like that. Or a Nair looks like that. I'll be honest, my eyes aren't really probably good enough to tell the difference between a lot of these. when I change them, it's just like I don't see any difference. I suppose if you really had the eye for it, though, you probably could. So you change the intensity, then you can see how that affects it. Now this is our preview window, so you don't have to have this on rendering because it just takes longer. Specular. What's specular? See how there's specular. See how the specular changed that light that's actually on the object now? Again, all of it has to do with the bouncing off of it and so forth. There's probably all exciting stuff there. Do a new. Okay, got a cube here. Click over here. I'll drop another cube. Come over here and drop something else. And drop the monkey. And again, I could come down here and choose rendered. See in that form. If I right, it's just so slow and rendered. Put back to solid. Okay, so I have this one selected. I can drop on materials. Or choose new. Change the diffuse to be some kind of color. I can choose this one. And see if I do the drop down here, I can have it choose the same one. Which means if I were to change this material, it would be reflected in both those. This one here, I'll click a new, diffuse, and choose yellow. So if you work at getting your whatever settings just perfect on your material block, it doesn't have to be just specific to one object. You can have it to 100 objects. And so then when you change the material block, then you can have it reflected everywhere. I just changed that one to material one also. Now if I choose this one here, besides the material, there's a texture right beside it. So if I click this texture here, then you see there's a new option here, and click new. Mine says image or movie, but yours might not. If I do the drop down arrow there, I can choose ocean. Now if I choose rendered, some of these I can tell the difference on, some I can't tell anything. There's wood. That one I can see. That's pretty obvious. I like that. Usually the wood is a good one to show because of that. Vortex. I thought that one usually I can see. Well, that's the voxel data. Is there a vortex? There's one that is like a swirl. There's Veroni. Stucky, however you pronounce these. Let's see, ocean. I can't see that well enough to actually see any difference with ocean. Noise. Probably can't see it on the screen there very well, but it's got noise in it, like static. You see it like on a TV screen. And they give you a preview here of it. Now, let's see, is there anything else? Clouds. Anyway, you can see the different. This works together with your material block to achieve the effect. Now, if I do File New and I got a cube here, if I go to my texture, it's a little on one here. The type, I can choose image or movie. Click Open and choose my pictures and choose pink 2 for example. And if I come down here and choose rendered, you see the Pink Panther on that side. So that's how you can treat an image like a texture. It does weird things when you have an option set over here too. Maybe I have to drop that on first. But in some cases it'll do like a mixture of them. So it seems weird. Or sometimes they'll apply this diffuse in a pattern of the Pink Panther. So the image helps dictate how it's applied. Now over here, I didn't mention this, but in the preview here, you can't see it very well if you click the cube. Then you can see a preview of what it looks like. So if you don't want to have this rendered on over here. Now we're going to take a look at how to separate this, so we can put an image like on each side to give you more control over what appears on each face. I need to refresh my memory on that though, because I remember some of it, but I don't remember all of it. The idea is you cut this. And that's part I'm drawing a blank on how to cut it. So like if I did a File New, we got a cube here, right? And if I come over here and on this side I drop on the UV image editor, if I go into edit mode here, I can do a U and do Smart UV Project. And then click OK. And that'll unwrap the cube. So I can put an image on each side of these. Over here, if I select instead of vertex select, I select the face. As I choose each face here, it'll choose a different image over here. If I select all of these, it'll show all 6. I could click a new and choose OK here. And then from here, there's lots of different options you can do. Pack as PNG. That there was a draw feature. It's never very meaningful to me. I just always just draw it to demonstrate it. I'm not seeing the draw. This tools. No, I don't see the draw. Live unwrap, constrain, stitch. Draw other objects. No. I'll do some experimenting on that and figure out how to do the draw on it. Not that it's very useful, but it is an option. The idea on UV unwrap is when I open up this UV, looking right at UV image editor. I come over here, go into edit like that. You can do a U to do the smart UV unwrap. The other way is you have to figure out how to cut it. So where do you make your cuts at so that you can lay it flat? And I never can remember this. Blender, where to cut a cube for UV unwrap or UV map. This one might show it. You see here where she's cutting or selecting certain sides? This is where you got to visualize cutting it along a certain edge so that you can lay it flat so you can then do things with it. Seams, there's a seam, seam, seam. Those are seams, seams. See, if you do it right, and this is what I'll figure out which seams to cut. See, you'll get it laid out like this. Now you may wonder, why does it matter? Why don't you just cut everything, just into separate little pieces? The idea is if you have an image that you want to drop on there that'll flow around, does that make sense in the cube? You don't got two separate images, but you got an image that flows around like this. You got to learn to cut it in the right place. It's even harder to cut like a head. UV unwrap head tutorial. Mapping. Images. Here's Suzanne. And here's how you, if you cut it in the right place, you can get the layout like this. Such that if you want to drop on a different image on here, then you can. You can put my face in here if you had this unwrapping. And once you have that unwrapped, then you can do that. And then when it basically gets wrapped back around the mesh. Does that make sense? Is everybody's head pretty much the same size? Roughly. It is, isn't it? We're all kind of got a, I don't know what you call that, but it's not a sphere, but it is kind of a certain shape, right? Um, one place to describe this is almost like like some kind of serial killer, and you're making cuts and peeling skin off. It's kind of weird to think of it that way, but that's the idea behind it. Where would you make the cuts in the head so that you could peel the skin off and lay it flat? So then you could paint it, you could put another picture on top of it, and so forth. And then after you get done doing that, you could put it back on the mesh. I'm not very good with heads. I never know where to make the cuts at. See, here's Suzanne. This is where you should make the cuts. This is where you should mark your seams. So that's one place, and then this is going across the head, and then you should also make them on the ears. If you do that, then you can unwrap it appropriately. See, and I guess I can see this now. This on this head, if you make the cuts there, and then you make the seam going down like this, why wouldn't you need it in front? Okay, you don't need it in front because if you have a cut in the back, you could take it and lay it flat, right? I can see them when somebody else does it. Here you just make cuts around the eyes, around the mouth, again, around the back of the skull, around the neck, and then around the ears. And if you do that properly, you can get a good layout you can work with. You can change the texture a little bit. You can move vertices around. A lot of things you can do with it. Now, I just wanted to introduce that concept today, but I put a couple of there's a blender pick too. I wanted to make something more entertaining than me fumbling around with UV unwrapping. You saw this back with the fun with rigid bodies, right? So on here, I want you to pick two. You don't have to pick the 50-minute ones or so I wouldn't recommend that. But there's some out here that are very short and sweet. If you do pick one of the longer ones, then turn it into both drop boxes for both assignments. But go through and create a couple of these, and then turn that in. Any questions on that?